Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have two government students in attendance. You guys care to introduce yourselves quick?
I'm Max. I'm my dad's son, obviously.
That boy Max. Welcome. When you get done, just make sure any one of us can sign your agenda sheet for you for credits. Okay, general session. First up, we have approval of the minutes from the December 10th regular meeting. Any discussion on those? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. Next, we have the minutes from the January 8th Board of Education special meeting. Have any discussion on those?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. And finally, we have approval of the minutes from the January 9th Board of Ed special meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion on those? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. Next, we have approval of the CSE, CPSE recommendations.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion second for approval of. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are approved. And finally, we are up to public comment. Any public comment? One here. No speeches from the government students? Administrators want to see? Okay. And we will move on to discussion items. So discussion items, facilities committee met last Tuesday. Kevin, you want to start off on that one for us?
Sure. Just gonna have to roll back just a little bit in time now to remember that. No, we had a good topic. We discussed the town and school project, how that went very well for us, and discussed a little bit of the open house. Touched on different process we're looking to laying out our calendar to move forward on our next capital project and that type. Without getting too deep, you can see the minutes are in the in our notes here, and I guess basically touched on the next major project on the $6 or $7 million project, and that we'd be looking at coming up with, because it's depending on how the bus garage or whatever that project works out to be, and just where all the finances fall into play with debt rolling off and trying to occur, so that we can keep our budgeting kind of flatlined a little bit in sequence with one another. There was definitely a lot more conversation to have, but trying not to get too deep into everything and relive the entire moment again.
Yeah, the biggest thing was on discussion was the capital outlay projects and what direction we would head for those, for the $100,000 projects. Some of the stuff we had leftover Townsend safety components. There was fencing, and there were repointing of the chimney was discussed. Also was the Townsend School crawl space moisture barrier in the K-wing, the wall ramp in the K-wing, and then the playground sound panels, if we have space to be able to do those. So we're kind of generating, depending on where we want to get work done with the capital outlay project. Before, we were doing classrooms up here for asbestos abatement. We still have a couple left there, but we still have projects in Townsend School. We may have to hook the capital project to Townsend School to wrap up and finish the capital project we just did there. So those were what we were really discussing, and the trick is always trying to keep that under that 100,000 mark for the capital outlay project. But definitely we know with the assessments that have been done this year of the moisture issues we're having in the K-wing and what that's doing. So that is a high priority It's popped up on us when people started looking at it. Structural engineers went under and looked at it. So, you know, if we can eliminate those issues at under 100K, that's what we'd be trying to focus on, rather than kicking it off to the next capital outlay project, which could be 28, 29. We'll get a presentation on that later. But so those are what we're up for discussion right now. You have a report in there, project development and timeline. So the timeline we were really looking at and we were really discussing, we're going to bring to this full committee was, do we try to push for a fall 2025 vote on the next capital outlay or the next big capital project? We as a committee really felt with a lot of data from our architects and engineers that that's really pushing the timetable to the point where I'm not sure we would be able to make that. And I don't want people to, especially the community, to feel rushed. You know, if we have to do something with the bus garage, with the roof project, we still haven't figured out what the impacts are of the flood laws on that. Are we going to be able to actually rehabilitate that structure being in a floodway by law? Are they going to make us do something different? All those opinions have to be sorted out before we can even start down that road. So if we don't have those answers, to bring it out for a vote in less than a year's time really feels like we're rushing it. So what I think we're going to recommend is, can we try to at least push that off to the spring of 26 for the capital vote and make that our new target, and then reverse engineer and calculate the timeline based on that. That's what we're looking at right now, because we really don't want to kick construction for the new project out too far. But yeah, we don't want to rush it without all the answers and background information we feel we need to be able to make that decision. So that works well with the application we turned into CWC for the feasibility analysis, where what if we have to relocate the bus garage structure? Where are the alternatives? What can we possibly do? So that, if we get awarded that grant, it's going to take several months to get that done. So, I mean, best case scenario, you'd be in that July, August, maybe, to get that data back. And imagine having a vote 2 months later. I mean, it's not enough time. So we're going to keep moving all those things forward. And if everything keeps coming that way, that the committee feels like we need to at least kick it off to the spring of 26, we'll do that. And if we have to recommend moving it farther out than that, we may. So just to give everybody a heads up, but that report's in there so you guys can read it and digest it.
I don't see it.
If you click under report under facilities committee, it should be highlighted in blue under admin content.
Oh, I thought you said it was a report.
No, you can click on that. It just gives you our facilities update highlights from the meeting. I believe Brett must put that together.
Can I ask, so once the vote happens, what's the typical time frame to start the construction?
You would be, yeah, it almost be a year.
So,
I
we're
think
talking spring 27.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And if yes, that's correct.
So with a May vote, you missed the first summer with New York State review. Then you go up for vote. Then you do your bid in the spring, and then either spring or summer work. If it's a fall vote, you miss that summer as well. So the goal would be to get a spring vote so we can pick up that one summer. So you get 2 summers rather than pushing it out further.
Yep. And they did an excellent job at the facilities, just trying to explain that timeline to us, to say, if we do this, we get these results, this is how far it would delay the project. And their recommendation really was the spring of 26 wasn't a bad time frame to actually go out to vote for a capital project. So, you know, we didn't feel uncomfortable. If we go past that, we're obviously gonna miss more. But the next project, you know, is sizable. It's millions of dollars again. So, you know, you don't want to rush into it.
And on the capital outlay, what's the process for getting to a final decision of what the actual project is going to include?
Mostly it's a financial standpoint, I believe. We have the projects selected now, just what they can fit under that 100,000. With, you still have to have your, you know, your any kind of design work, SED review, any kind of oversight of construction, like all the total cost has to be under the 100K. So it's a matter of, we'd love to do all those ones we have highlighted, but we just don't know if it's financially if we're gonna be able to do it. So it may.
The committee then is going to bring that recommendation to the board.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. Yep.
Yep. And that's for the second. This year's was selected last year's.
Right.
Work hasn't been done yet. We're still waiting for the approval process.
and that's the fences and the chimney, and the finish of the sound panels.
Yep.
And then we're talking about is for next year, and that's where the discussion is for the others. So, I talked to Dean Whalen, I just communicated with him, making sure that we're keeping our momentum going forward, so you get the structural engineers involved to go back and follow up on their review, so they can start kind of narrowing down, whether there's a scope there that would fit all of that we talked about with that vapor barrier and the hallway, work that needs to be analyzed. So we're moving forward with that now, so we can make sure we get those answers, because that's the key, is to get their estimated cost. And then we know if the first estimated cost is $125,000,
Yeah.
then we move forward. So
On the capital project, so if we start construction in the spring of '27, what's the date for our capital reserve? Forget, is that '27 or '28?
The 10 years would be 29. Yep. If I'm correct. Is that correct, Meg? I believe our 10-year time frame for the capital reserve is 29. It doesn't make it any easier to get it done, but, you know, that squeezes that into the time frame. Yep. Okay, next we have a reminder of the Finance Committee. We'll meet on January 29th at 5 p.m. I'm sure everybody's on board for that. And then next we have a budget development update from Mrs. Hungerford.
Not so much an update, I'm still working on the first draft to be presented on the 29th, but I would like to request a change to the calendar that we approved. On March 18th, our board meeting was scheduled to be a community forum, and I'm just asking that we move that to the week before, March 4th, for county members.
So that will come back for revision.
Okay. Sounds good. You said that would be March.
March 4th at 7 p.m.
Okay.
That's following the regular business meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Next, Dr. McDonald and Kevin Verweer will attend their annual legislative breakfast on Saturday, March 1st to represent the district. So thank you for attending. And then next, our district is hosting our superintendent search community forum next week on Wednesday, January 22nd, with a snow date of Thursday, the 23rd. And we're strongly encouraging any interested district residents, staff, and students to attend either in person at 6 p.m. in the high school auditorium or by joining us via live remote viewing option. And please note that the pre-registration is required for the remote option, providing your name, address, and email address to the district clerk by emailing cfrainer@waltoncsd.org or calling 607-865-4116, extension 6130, no later than Tuesday, January 21st at 4 p.m., please. So we do have a remote option for that, and everyone there is going to receive a survey in-house, and that feedback will be delivered directly to the Board of Education right at the conclusion of that forum, which is paramount to get the input from the community, staff, and students into this process. Also, we have under discussion items, you received a enrollment report for 1/10/2025.
Mm-hmm.
Can I discussion item? On the 6th, Mike, Corey, and I met to discuss the committee charter template. And we basically were trying to identify the sections of the template that's already been approved, and the charter that's been approved that would be replaced by the other committees. As we were going through that, we identified some questions that we had, so we decided that we would send that back to the policy committee for discussion. So there's some questions that we'll have in our next policy committee meeting, and then once those are resolved, that template will go to the other committees.
Okay. Any comment on the enrollment report? Okay, next we are up to correspondence.
You did receive a few more graduation thank you notes, and the district report card has been released on the SED website.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just catching up with my computer here. Okay, any additions to the agenda?
We don't have any additions, but I'll draw your attention. You were already notified that we made a change to the winter coaching recommendations. The modified wrestling is now Austin Bedient. And those did start yesterday, I believe. Those were an emergency appointment.
Okay, now we're up to the consent agenda. Does anyone want any of those individually pulled from the consent agenda? And or do you have any discussion on A through H? We do have a huge list of retirements this year. It's going to be quite an active spring and summer to fulfill those positions, and there's a lot of longtime standing teachers here in the district that are retiring. So our resignations and retirements are Sally Lauser, custodial worker, Tanika Brown, our school monitor, Catherine Jeffers, occupational therapist, Carol George, teacher aide, Tony Wood, teacher aide, Judy Ogden, teacher, longtime teacher, Raymond Bartlett, longtime teacher, Jennifer Bartlett, Robin Wagner, and Jennifer Lamoureux, all due to retirement, the last 6 anyway, 7. So a lot of big shoes to fill there. I mean, there's a lot of teachers that have been here a long time and put most of their lives into teaching here at Walton. So we thank them for their service and wish we didn't have to have any retirements, but everybody's got to retire at some point. So
Yes, we do.
you want to show your retirement clock on your phone? He showed it to me before the meeting, just so for clarity. I got his retirement countdown, and I went, really? Okay. Any discussion on any of those items under the consent agenda? If none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is carried. Next, we have accepting donations. These are, I don't know if you guys want me to read all these, but a lot of the Canine Dome, we had a lot of donations for a lot of things for the Canine Dome. I'm willing to read them if you want, but they are up for public information. I mean, there's a lot of good people. I'll read some of them. We have Pack and Heat, Bar and Grill, Joe's Pizza, Lasting Impression, Danny's, Lactalis, Thayer's, a Walton Diner, Walton FFA, Tammy, Tweedy, thank you. Houston Trucking, I hope I don't miss any of these. Walton Big M, Frank Ward, to the FFA chapter towards purchase of jackets, Upstate Images, to the High School Yearbook Club, William O'Neill, to Regina Austin, O'Neill Butcher and Chuck Butcher Endowment, in memory of Thomas H. O'Neill, and Celia Austin, $1,500 from William O'Neill to the Thomas H. O'Neill Memorial Award, Christian McDonald and family to the Walton Athletic Department in memory of Joan Coppola, and a donation from David Jackson to the high school student council. So thank you everyone, and I would entertain a motion to accept those with sincere appreciation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you all, and I hope I didn't miss any. Okay, next we have the adoption of the data privacy resolution. Add anything to that?
Sure, I can understand that. So the Regional Information Center, VT BOCES has the South Central Regional Information Center. That's what we lean on. That's where our internet comes from. That's where a lot of our main network hubs come from. And they are our major privacy and protection, literally protection for the district through multiple firewalls as well as vendor data privacy agreement, DBAs with vendors, third-party contractors. What they've done is they're continuing to up the practice in their procedures and in-district procedures. So we have a database that we can go to, and if the vendor's there, it's good. But if you establish a contract with your own direct vendor, you know, there wasn't a set procedure, so everybody was using the same thing. This puts us all in line underneath their umbrella and allows us to establish those individual vendors with guidance and systemic processes. So it's much needed, much welcome. So this keeps us protected underneath, Ed 2D.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor of adopting signify by saying aye. Opposed? That is carried. Next, we have authorization of budget amendment transfer of funds for the school resource officer.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Motion second. Any discussion on that?
I'd just like to make a statement that at the last meeting, I did bring up my concerns with SRO. One of the concerns, and I voted no at the time, one of the concerns was related to the use of the fund balance as your fund position. Our recommendation was to go through the 2025-26 normal budget process so we could get stakeholder input and fully evaluate our financial position. So just in alignment with those considerations, I'm going to be voting no tonight on this.
Okay. Anyone else want any discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried.
Mr. Revere?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next we have emergency appointments under personnel. Catherine Eskow for custodial worker.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. And personal appointments. Okay, I'm gonna get that last name not right. Michael Giannicki, thank you. Assistant building maintenance mechanic.
I'll make the
Any-
motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's carried. And finally, we're up to policy review. Mr. Verweer, please.
All right, so as part of our annual review of the policies, we have the following. 8220, buildings and grounds maintenance and inspection. 8505, charging school meals and prohibition against shaving. 9240, recruiting and hiring. 9420, evaluation of staff. So please review those at your convenience.
Okay. Next, we are up to policy first reading for our policy. Would you like to continue?
All right, for first reading tonight, we have 8130, school safety plans and teams. Make a motion.
I'll second it. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of accepting a policy first reading for 8130 signify by saying aye. Opposed? That's carried. And we're looking for the adoption of and second reading. Mr. Weir?
For second reading tonight, we have 1120, school district records.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion on that? All those to adopt the policy signify by saying aye. Opposed? That is adopted. And finally, we are up to supervisor's remarks.
Okay, we've got John, Brett's, and Brooks reports here. Are there any questions on any of those? will note that we did have a water break, or a coil that froze and blew over break. And thankfully come to find out, a unique part. They're made specific to the unit, but we had one other unit in the building that had the same coil. So, with communication between Brett and Artie, they're able to take that room and repurpose it to a different room and keep our special education classroom intact. But we did have some loss in there and some materials that got lost from water. But thankfully, we had our building walkthroughs. That's why it's important for O&M to be checking the buildings daily. And they recognized it. We're able to respond. I think it was Christmas Eve that happened. Right? Christmas Eve. And Mr. Nolan's reports to highlight, the exterior school bus stop arm cameras are now installed and operational. So that'll assist us in obtaining law enforcement assistance with any dangerous drivers that go by the buses and potentially harm our children. So that's a good safety enhancement, as well as our two-way bus radios are now installed. For all these years we had a base in Townsend, but not a base in the other two offices. Now we've got 3 functional bases. So the communication has lifted. And again, we had a lot of gaps, even on the park lots. It got real bad, but we had a lot of gaps out in the routes. So now we're not going to have that. So the drivers will be able to be in better communication if there's any type of an issue. So another safety enhancement. And Rex is all safety. Rex, we had the cameras go down, and he was able to get those back up and get the camera servers swapped out and replaced. So we got that operating as well. So all 3 of them, and safety items that they were addressing recently, but successfully. Okay, and administrators, you're here. I'm not going to highlight yours.
At Townsend, we had our first math night. Our 5th grade teachers really took the initiative to bring the math night back. We wanted to incorporate movement and real life experiences for the kids. We did it for grades 3 through 5, so we had a great start, but we're looking to expand that in March to include K through 5, bring families in. We fed them, played games, looked at how you use math in real life, what jobs use math, and the kids just had a fun time for that. So we're excited to keep that going, and we're hoping that we can increase our turnout. But for the first event, it went really well, so that was great. We've also expanded on our parent notifications. Usually we're sending just like a half slip with dates. Now we're incorporating some information about what's happening in the school. So what's going on in the FEL classes, what could you do to help your child be successful, dress warm because of the cold months, and we're outside for recess pretty much every day unless it's under 20. So just giving that education, so we're hoping to educate parents and kind of get some of their feedback too. So.
We had our first wellness day at the beginning of December in the middle school, part of our strategic planning goals, but also something that's really been spearheaded by our SEL committee. We did our Sunday party for honor roll, our acknowledging and celebrating kids who made honor roll. We had the Zoomobile come in from the Utica Zoo and show off some animals. I learned the difference between an opossum and a possum. Scared some of the kids with a boa constrictor that they carried around, so it was a good time had by all. We're planning our next one already. We gathered feedback from that from both teachers and students to kind of see what we could do better. And some of the things we recognized at the time that there's a little, we built in some time for door decorating, but we built in too much time for door decorating. But as far as the students go, literally all but one student in the middle school filled out the survey, said they'd rather do that than class, which probably makes sense with middle schoolers. The other thing I want to highlight is our fall athletic teams all made scholar athlete recognition from New York State Public High School Athletic Association. again, we stress the idea of our student athletes and student first, and those teams show that that's true.
Awesome. High school.
I just want to touch on two things from my report. One is congrats to all the students that were inducted last night into the National Honor Society. We have 14 new students inducted. That program is under a new advisor this year and a new faculty council. Everything went off very smoothly, and congrats to Danielle Cole, the advisor for the National Honor Society, and congrats again to all the students. The other piece I want to touch on is next week is Regents Week for the high school. Since we are a semester in school, these January Regents are very important for some of our kids. We're hitting out notifications for parents and students on all of our communication channels. We did have an incorrect date on one of the calendars. We actually got a PDF of a corrected calendar that we're attaching to our communication. Some of you may have gotten one tonight, actually. I think I had one going out today at 5. So we're hitting that on all avenues to make sure kids aren't showing up when they shouldn't for those exams.
Any questions for any of the principals?
I just wanted to mention the Drama Club production over the weekend. I had the opportunity to go, and it was very, very good, very entertaining. The students and the directors did a really good job, so it's very enjoyable.
Guess I should have brought that up.
Thank you, Tammy.
Well, Mr. Davies, that's, you know.
Whoops.
So just two things from my end. As mentioned earlier, we had the open house last night, which was the final piece of the puzzle with the Townsend floor construction project. There are some closeout items. There are some small items that still need to be addressed ongoing here with contractors, and they will be, but it's not going to prevent us from being occupied. So I believe tomorrow, right? Today's Wednesday, right? So tomorrow we'll have the moving company on site, and we'll be populating those rooms, those 4 classrooms. So that's exciting to get those 4 new rooms back up and populated. And then just one other thing, just to circle back, if you recall, we approved a pre-construction safety review with an outside expert coming in. We're now in the coordinating phase of that. That will occur mid-February to April, sometime in that time frame. I'm going a little bit wider because I want to get the SRO here established and coordinate through that time period, and pull in the sheriff if they choose to come in and get an expert. He was talking about bringing in a second expert, which would be great from their end, and then we'll bring back whatever the findings are. That, again, if you recall, we're doing this to inform the project development that we talked about today of the next capital project. So this is a facility review, cameras, door systems, the hardening of the facility, various things of that nature that are capital project oriented. So, okay, that's all.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to get a professional report on all that, so we can make sure we stay up to date. Absolutely. On all the safety items. I appreciate that. Okay, we do have the need to go into an executive session for the purpose of discussing matters related to contractual negotiations. We'd like to invite Meg referred into that with us. We have a motion to go into exec.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried, and at this time, there will be no action taken afterwards. So I would like to ask in advance, who will make the motion to later return to general session and adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned and into exec. Don't forget your papers to be
You guys got
signed.
lucky.
That was
I was thinking the same thing.
Pretty